What are the other actions then that agents can take to reduce their own environmental damage? And I'm throwing this out to all of you. Sarah, we haven't heard from you for a while. What else can they do?
Yeah, it's really good question. Just if I may, very quickly, Grant mentioned about agents together, and we are going to pick up the baton with recognizing businesses for doing the right thing. We're very much in the depths of the planning of that and hoping to launch it in the next couple of months, because we want to acknowledge estate agency businesses, and not only acknowledge, celebrate those businesses that are really doing a good job, not only around sustainability, but also well-being in the workplace and diversity and inclusion, the whole picture all together, to make workplaces and the estate agency industry a really great place to be. Sorry, I had to get that in there. But to your point, Gabby, this has got to be a whole business approach, and Mary said it, not everybody gets behind it, but you've got to certainly set out with it being, this is going to be a cultural shift, so you kind of have to get everybody involved here, and people will be involved as much as they wish. You'll get some people who want to spearhead it and drive it forward, and I think actually, if as a decision maker or a business owner, even in a small business, if you raise this with your teams, you'll be surprised how many people would quite like to get involved with this and drive it forward. So I think I would definitely start there, start talking about it, speak to your teams, find out who'd like to drive a project that's a bit extra to their usual day-to-day valuations and viewings and negotiating sales and lettings, and see who wants to run it. I think more practically though, Mary said some really brilliant stuff, and it's brilliant to see a business like Hamptons, really flying the flag for this. But I would say, it starts with things like everything from trying to go paperless, being conscious about the impact that your cars are having. Obviously, that was mentioned. I think, all the obvious stuff about recycling and all the usage stuff that we kind of know we should be doing now, but putting a plan in place is really important. And then there's another thing that I would say here, and this is a real big one. I think it's in line with what Tom was saying, putting a bit of pressure on your suppliers. Your supply chain is really important. Obviously, we know through Just Move In, you can help your consumers to be more consciously sustainable. But what about your suppliers? Are we demanding that of our suppliers as well? We've got a vast amount of prop tech businesses and others in this space, and many of whom find it easier to be to sustainable and less impact on the environment because they are by nature tech businesses, but there's still a lot to be done in that space. So I think we can start asking more of our suppliers, and also start seeking out suppliers who help us with our goals. So if there are businesses that help you go paperless, then surely they're the best businesses to be looking at now. So just little things like that. Hopefully that's helpful. But we are going to make a great big long list after this to share amongst us all of things where people can make a start.
And is there anything, Amy, you would add to that list as somebody kind of sitting just kind of outside immediately of the industry, so to speak, but obviously with a vested interest in B Corp?
Yeah, so I was going to actually say, the letting agency industry is no different to the wealth management industry, in that you have intermediated access to homes and access to accommodation the same way we have intermediated access to the markets, access to investment markets. And in that reality, you have an upstream and a downstream supply chain, as Sarah was just referring to. You have your clients, so eventually the tenants. For us, it's our wealth holders. And then you have your landlords, and our landlords are the investment managers. And ultimately, we have our own product as well, so it's the end businesses as well. So our circle of influence is massive, absolutely massive. You don't, in our industry, you don't have to be BlackRock to create change. In fact, often you can create more change because you're more free and agile the smaller you are. So I would say, when you're thinking about the type of where you want to be, for example, in say 3 years time, 5 years time, 10 years time, think about ultimately who it is you want to be as a business. What is it ultimately that you have set yourself up to become? What are the issues that you are therefore tackling, both from a social point of view, access to housing, and an environmental point of view, energy efficiency in the home environment? And then think about your stakeholders in that, where you've got your tenants and your landlords, and start to think about, okay, how do I work with them? How do I influence the change that's required in my little universe of change? And I think if you start there, you'll elevate the conversation from all of the really important stuff that needs to happen, so you know, your own energy use, your own paper use, etc., to ultimately what system change can you create out in society. And this is where the next decade is. It's about that big system change piece, and you do not have to be big. You can be small, you can be one person. I think Anita Roddick once famously said, if you think you're too small to create change, try going to bed with a mosquito in the room and see who wins. You know, that you really just focus on what your sphere of influence is and work out where you can create the change.